What's up, guys? Legend here, and I'm doing a raw rant. I know it's been fucking forever since I've done one of these, but god damn it, something just drove me up the fucking wall yesterday on Facebook. So I was scrolling through Facebook, whatever, looking at hentai or something, and then I see something like this. This shit right here, fucking, I had to stop. I got physically angry. Like, motherfucker. Okay, so I know some of you are gonna be like, oh my god, you're picking on waiters now? What the fuck? Look, I'm not picking on waiters, okay? Personally, I think waiters should make minimum wage. Which, newsflash, if you don't know this already, they do, technically. I'll get to that in a fucking minute. But I hate this sense of entitlement that wait staff have. Go to Europe, for example, and we'll talk about this later too, but waiters don't get tipped in Europe. That's not a thing. That's just not a thing. But yeah, they technically make hourly minimum wage. And again, we'll get to that in a minute. But this shit just drives me fucking nuts when I see it. Oh, fucking tip your waiter for good service or what the fuck ever. I'm not saying you shouldn't tip your waiter. Let me just preface this. I'm not saying you shouldn't tip your waiter. Tip them. If they do a good job, tip them. But don't tip them 20 goddamn % of your bill. Tip them what you think you should. If they did a good job, throw 5 at them. If you were there for an hour and they did a good job, give them $5. If they didn't do a good job, fuck them. They're not entitled to a goddamn tip. If you don't do a good job, if you're a fucking cunt the whole time, if my drink is empty for 20 goddamn minutes because you can't stop by my table and check up on us, you're not getting tipped. You're not entitled to a tip. I tip you because you do your job well, right? That's the point, right? Like, you tip because they did their job well, and if they didn't, they don't get their goddamn tip. Okay, so let's get this first misconception out of the way. A lot of people think, and I will leave sources for my information down in the comments, or down in the description, in case you didn't know this, and you want to go check it out yourself. I did a lot of research for this. I called a lot of my local restaurants. I talked to some waitresses. I did a lot of research online. Here's what I found. First off, the whole waiters don't make minimum wage. Bullshit. Technically, you are correct if you say wait staff are paid less than minimum wage per hour. You would be correct in that statement. However, it would be misleading as fuck because at the end of the week on a paycheck, if a waiter, let's say a waiter worked 40 hours, and their income with their hourly pay and their tips doesn't equal what they would have made if they were paid minimum wage, the employer has to make up that difference to cover them to minimum wage. So at the end of the day, wait staff are always at least paid minimum wage. Whether it be the employer making up the difference on their paycheck before they get it, or they get more than minimum wage through tips and their hourly pay. Let's take a state like Arkansas, for example. Arkansas pays waiters $120 or $2.28 an hour, or $2.68, one of the two. However, Arkansas is also one of the 42 states that has a clause that will pay waiters more than minimum wage if they don't make up to it. Arkansas, if a waiter doesn't make at least $8.50 an hour at the end of their paycheck, they are compensated for the difference. So that means a waiter is paid at the very minimum $8.50 an hour for their job. That's like a very, very minimum. They have to at least be paid $8.50 an hour because of the law. Some states are even more generous. Go to California, for example. If a waiter doesn't make at least $11.82 an hour, they're compensated up to that point. Okay? So let's just go ahead and rub that slate clean. Waiters are paid at least federal minimum wage an hour. And for anyone who's like trying to throw anecdotal evidence at me, like, oh, I was a waiter and that didn't happen for me, sue your goddamn boss because they were not following the law. If you were a waiter and you did not make federal minimum wage an hour on your paycheck and your boss didn't compensate for the difference, sue them because they were not following the law. And again, I will leave links to all this information down in the description. Okay, let's move on, shall we? I kind of have bullet points here, actually. So, In my research, I found out that most waiters make around $11.60 in tips an hour. So to do this, I took the average number of tables a waiter gets, which is anywhere from 4 to 9 in a section. 4 to 9, so I did 5 to be generous, or to be ungenerous. And then I took the average dining time of a table, which is around 60 to 90 minutes. I did 90 minutes, again, highballing it, to make it to where, on the slowest night possible. So, with those numbers, and taking into consideration that not every table tips, and that most people tip around $5 to $10, I just did $5 per table that actually tipped. So 3 out of the 5 tables in this waiter section, theoretical waiter section, would tip $5. And the tables would switch every 90 minutes, right? So at the end of the day, taking the averages into consideration, the average wait staff makes between $90 to $150 a night, on average, including their hourly pay. That's good money. Okay, that's very good money for anyone who thinks it's not. It is, because I work as a supervisor at a mental health care recovery facility. I make $103 a day before taxes. That means most waiters make more than I do as a supervisor in the mental health care field. That's fucking ridiculous. Even with their low hourly pay, they're making more than me. Hell, my sister is a fucking car hop at Sonic, and she carries around fucking wads of Cat 20s in her fucking, like, the bitch pulls out wads of goddamn 20s and shit whenever she's got fucking bank. Okay? Waiters make fucking bank. I just want to be transparent about this. I'm fully aware that some wait staff do not make bank. I'm fully aware that there are some wait staff who just don't get tips very much. Maybe it's because you're a cunt and you're not friendly with the table. Maybe it's because you suck at your job. Or maybe it's because of the people you're waiting are shitty people and don't tip you. Either way, I know that some people don't tip. And I know that some waiters don't make very good money. But a majority of waiters make relatively good income for the job they hold. Because let's not forget, anyone can be a waiter for the most part. I'm not downing it, but let's be real here. It doesn't take any special skills. It doesn't take any goddamn, training. Well, I guess the week training at fucking what, Chili's you have to go through or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't take any special schooling or whatever. Anyone can go and apply to be a waiter. Let's just be 100% transparent with ourselves and don't lie. Like, oh, you have to... Yeah, it's hard on the feet. I'm so sorry, your feet hurt. I worked construction, or I did before I had my job. That shit was backbreaking, and you probably still made better money than me. So, I don't want to hear this bullshit about, oh, it's a hard job, or it's not. It's not a hard job. Okay? As shitty as I'm sounding, it's not a hard job. And that brings me to my next point. A lot of wait staff are just fucking entitled. I'm just gonna come out and say it. And again, I'm using blanket statements. Most wait staff are fine. Most waiters are not like, you only gave me a $5 tip, you fucking bitch, I'm gonna spit in your food next time. Most waiters are cool. They're not like, oh, you have to tip me this percentage of your fucking check or whatever. You give them $5, they're fine. Most waiters are nice people. I'm talking about the select few that go on Facebook and bitch and rave about, this fucking table ordered a $100 meal and they only tipped me $10. What the fuck? Fuck you, you entitled piece of shit. At least they fucking gave you $10. That means you made $12 that hour. Okay, that means you made $12 if you work in Arkansas. If you work in Arkansas, you made at least $12.82 for just that table that hour. Right? So, do you see where I'm going with this? Everyone sees where I'm going with this, right? It's ridiculous how entitled some of these fucking people are. And I know that's a personality trait, and not all waiters are like that. I understand that. I'm just saying, it's annoying going through Facebook and seeing these goddamn posts about how shitty people are for not giving me more money for bringing a plate to a table. It's stupid. Now let's talk about Europe. I know that was a fucking hard transition, but Europe doesn't have this problem. Europe doesn't have the custom of tipping your waitstaff. While Europe does have regular pay for waiters, like minimum wage pay, like they get paid what a minimum wage worker would normally get paid, they also don't get tipped. Waiters in Europe make shit money compared to waiters in the US. If you actually look at it from a number standpoint, yeah, their hourly pay is better, and that sounds better, but when you take the tips out of the waiter equation, waiter is kind of a shitty job, because you get paid minimum wage for the most part. If you don't get tips, you just get paid minimum wage. So, if you go over to Europe, they don't have this whole issue where it's like, oh, you gotta tip me because I'm not making my minimum wage, even though that's a fucking lie, and people who spread that are bullshit, but whatever. So, why don't we have something more along the lines of how they have it in Europe, you may be asking. If Europe is so great, and they're not having this bullshit where people are having a tip, and waiters are getting paid less than minimum wage or whatever, well, I'll tell you why. Because employers get a tax break if they compensate a waitstaff's pay. What does that mean? Well, you remember earlier how I was talking about waitstaff, if they don't make minimum wage for the hours they work, the employer has to make up that difference? Well, apparently employers get a tax break for doing this. Employers basically get paid to make up this difference. So, honestly, it's in the benefit of the employer for you to make shit money and for them to make it up. It's in the benefit of the employer for you to make, $2 something an hour, not get your tips, and then have them make it up because they're getting tax breaks at the end of the day for it. That needs to fucking change. The whole system is fucked. Why are we still doing this? Why don't we just, take tips out of the equation and pay waitstaff minimum wage like they should be in the first place? I don't know. Weird. So let's move on to the next point. Probably the most frustrating point of all this. This whole percentage misnomer. Where did this come from? I'm genuinely curious about where these random ass percentages came from. Because it was 15%, and now it's 20%. Like, it seems they keep changing and getting bigger, but also, for what purpose? Why do we have these random percentages attached to our tip? What does it do? What is it good for? I understand the argument that, oh, well, if you order more food, that means the waiter had to do more work. No, it means the cook had to do more work. The waiter just had to bring it to the table. So if anything, I should be tipping the fucking cook, not the cunt who brought it to my table. Right? Or am I confused on this? Yeah, I get it. They had to bring more plates to the table. Oh, you had to bring 4 plates instead of 3 to the table? You poor soul. Let me make sure I tip you 20%. Go fuck yourself. Also, it doesn't even make sense from that aspect, because if I go to a sushi restaurant and fucking order 2 plates of fun sushi and 1 bowl of ramen, right? And it turns out to be $85-$90. Why is the waiter getting 20% of that? Where did that come from? Because at the end of the day, she brought up 2 drinks and 3 plates. That's not a lot. That's not a lot at all. That's 1 trip. Easy 1 trip. So, it's arbitrary, is the thing that pisses me off. It's an arbitrary number that doesn't mean anything. It's give me this amount of money because that's what you're supposed to do. Who said that? Where did it come from? It seems like it's one of those things that, the waiters made up to get more money. Kind of like the whole Bears made up playing dead, the Bears were tell them they should, bullshit. I know, it had to come from waiters, right? Because no one else has incentive to fucking say that. I'm sure it got started on the internet, or I don't know. I don't know where, because from what I understand, it's been around for a while, right? Like, this has been a thing for a while. I don't get it. It really, really confounds me. I tried to do research on it. I couldn't, sir. If you have a resource that tells me where this came from, please leave it in the comments. Like, post a link to it. Because I do not know where it came from. I just have no idea. So, let's move on to my final point, and probably the biggest point of this little rant that I'm on. The IRS has reported that on average, there's an estimated $11 billion a year in unreported and untaxed income from waitstaff. That's a lot of fucking money. $11 billion, that's pretty much $11 billion that taxpayers are losing a year because we're tipping. That's a ridiculous amount of money. And there's, like, taxpayers are losing money. Employers are getting huge tax cuts for basically making up shit pay for waitstaff. Waiters are making buku money for doing a jack shit job. Like, the whole system is fucking stupid, and it's perpetuated by these stupid percentages that keep getting passed around Facebook. Fuck you. I'm not tipping you 20%, you stupid dyke. I'll tip you what I feel like you deserve. If you do a good job, I'll tip you well. If you don't do a good job, you're not entitled to shit, and I'm not tipping. End of story.